So I've got this that I made a bit over a year ago. I've used it for 2 Christmases now. This is the Wind-O-Matic 5000. I've got a separate video on this. I use it for rolling up Christmas lights. You can see I've done all of this year's ones there. They're ready to go away back in the loft. And I did that because doing 100 metre, those are all 100 metre lengths, and you can't really wind those around a bit of cardboard or whatever. So I wanted something where I could roll it up on a spindle, roll them up into a reel, and then take the whole thing out with the spindle in the middle, put a new fresh spindle in. So you can see each one of those has got one of these wooden spindles in the middle, and then wind up the next set, because I've got like 7 or 8 sets in total that are all 100 metres. And it's been great. I loved it. I've really enjoyed using it, but I've come up with some ideas to improve it, so I'm going to see if I can make a better version. And basically my idea, the big idea I had so far, I designed this so that you get the spindle out by taking this whole side off. So this side panel just comes off, which I'll show you in a minute, and then you sort of take the spindle out, put the new one in, and put the side back on, and that's fine. But it takes a little while. I've got them held in with bolts. You've got to undo each bolt. So there's 4 bolts you have to undo to get each spindle out, and then 4 bolts to do up to put the next one back in. And I thought if I had a slot here, so this hole where the spindle goes, if I cut a slot down to that, I can slot the spindle in, take the spindle out, provided I've got some way of retaining it, obviously. I also thought it'd be nice to have a third leg, because when I'm putting this down like that, and the split things here, I have to put it down that way so that it holds the lights off the ground. If I had a third leg, then it doesn't matter which way I put it down, it'll always be held off the ground. So I thought about doing that. The only thing with doing, if you're doing 3 legs here, this is all cut out of one piece of MDF. A third leg, that's a huge piece of MDF, especially ×2 for each side, to cut out and just waste the triangular sections from. So I thought if I can find a way of cutting the legs and fixing them together in a way that's reasonably secure, I can do it. So I just cut some little small strips. I cut them double mitered so they kind of come to a point and meet in the middle at the right angles, and then just glued some material over the top, fired a few pins in there and a couple of screws, and that's pretty sturdy. I can't get that apart if I hammer down on that. You know, it doesn't need, no one's standing on this, it doesn't need to be super sturdy, it's only holding the weight of some LED lights, but that's good, so that'll save me a bit of MDF. So at this stage, that's all I've got. I'm going to make this video as I go along, so I'm going to see what I can come up with, which will be the Wind-O-Matic 6000. Oh, I should say as well, the other idea I had, I wanted it to be backwards compatible with the spindles. I didn't want to have to do anything different with the spindles, so for now I think this handle is just going to remain. I'd love to find a way of doing it where you can wind it up with a screwdriver or impact driver or whatever, but short of fitting like a hex bit into the middle of each thing. I'm not sure how I can do that, and that would be a bit of a pain to do that on each spindle. Anyway, here's how the side comes off. And then you get the spindle out by undoing the last bolt there, so that's number 4. And then, very much the same way, put it all back together again. There you go, so it seemed quite quick, but in reality, when you're doing all those sets of lights, it's a bit of a pain. It'd be easier if there was something you didn't need tools for, that you could just do by hand, and it was just 2 bolts, undo, slot the thing out, slot the next one in. So let's see what we can make. Okay, so my idea, I don't know if you can see, is to try and taper the legs so that they're thinner at the end, because they don't need as much strength, but this would be the bit where it's all held together with glue and whatever I decide to use. So hopefully it works. It's going to make cutting the point, the double mitre or whatever it's called, a bit more tricky, because I'll have to use an offcut, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so to cut the mitres, the 30-degree mitres, I've had to use an offcut in order to hold the piece at the right angle, so that that's actually 30 degrees, because if I didn't have that there, this would be angled back like that, and it would be more than 30 degrees or less, whichever way it is, I forget. So hopefully this will work. I've got a stop block here, so it should cut slightly more than half off of there, so that when I flip it and do the other side, I get a point that's dead centered. hopefully. I can already see that that angle isn't perfect. Well, we'll see how this goes. It doesn't have to be perfect, but hopefully it'll work. Let's see. So, imagine my delight. They fit together. Yes, it's not perfect. There's some little gaps. It's fine. This isn't about perfection, especially on this one. There's a slightly bigger gap there, but it's all right. What I have realised though is I've made a bit of a stupid mistake, because on my prototype thing, this thing, I glued this piece on, and obviously this, I've gone for a scrap I had of melamine faced MDF. You can't glue onto melamine, well, certainly not the top surface anyway, so I'm going to have a think about that. It's probably going to have to be mechanical fasteners. I'm going to cut some discs that go over here. I guess it's going to have to all be screwed together or nailed together. Anyway, I'll have a think about that. Okay, just to get them initially together, I've done a bit of glue. So I fixed the initial 2 pieces with CA glue and activator, just to give it a very, weak but some kind of hold. And then this top piece I've slotted in both with some 5-minute epoxy, just this stuff, Gorilla Glue. So I'll let that dry for probably 10 minutes or so, and then maybe see if I can make some pieces to go over there. I'm thinking maybe if I can get them fixed on initially somehow, perhaps with screws, I can then drill through and put dowels in and glue them, and that might be stronger. So we'll see if I can cover up this hole in the process. Okay, let's see how it goes. Right, so I've realised I've made an idiotic mistake in that this being the Wind-O-Matic 6000, I wanted to make it slightly more refined and nicer. So I wanted to have a 45-degree cut on these corners, and I want to put a 45-degree chamfer on all the edges with the router, which is terrific, except I should have done that before I glued it up. I should have done that when these were all individual buttons, pieces, whatever you want to call them. So now I'm going to have to, once again, use this offcut, use the double tape and mitre fast trick to stick that there, and then get a 45-degree cut in corners that's consistent, that all matches. So well done me. Let's have a bash at this. Oh, that's better. Okay, I've traced around these, basically put each face kind of face down on it, traced around it, and I'll cut that out with a jigsaw in a minute, and that's going to be the kind of reinforcing piece on there. But first, before I do that, I've just sanded it. I'm going to do the routering to get the chamfer on all of the edges, and then I'll cut these out with jigsaw and see about getting them on there. Okay, so I've cut out these bits. I've drilled some holes where the dowels are going to go in these ones. What I'm going to do is just, I know it's melamine, I'm going to put a bit of glue on anyway, just in case it helps. And then I'm just going to pin them on there, and pin the ones on the other side. What's slightly annoying is I did my nice chamfered edges, and then now obviously these have got square edges, so I think after I get these securely fixed on, I'll go bring the router out again probably. Anyway, for now, let's just get these sorted out. Let's get okay, that feels very swimmy. Expect that glue's good. What I want to do now, just so that I can find the dead centre for when I do the spindle hole, I'm going to use that point on that side and drill through. Cool, there we go. Now I've got a hole. Show me where to drill the spindle out. I've come to my senses and decided that putting dowels in here is just a bit excessive, so I'm just going to put some screws in. By the way, why do so many people you see on YouTube do this? Just do it in one. It's fine. As long as you've got an impact that's got like a really lightweight setting. Don't need to keep doing that thing. drives me nuts when I see people and they just go like this. Don't need to do that. Slightly bigger drill. Slightly bigger drill bit. Alright, here we go. Right, I've marked out for the slot. It's time to cut it. Let's see if having that slot there has made it significantly weaker. Pretty happy with that. Right, now it's time for routing round 2. I slightly chamfered off these edges because these were, you know, just like square edges as well. So I've just used a block plane and a bit of sandpaper. Where I've routed it, you can see I've got quite furry, kind of jagged edges. I think that's because I was doing it before I let the glue dry. You can still see a bit of wet glue there. But hey ho, I was impatient and I wanted to get it done, so that's fine. But I'm happy with the strength of that. I can push down on that quite hard and nothing's flexing. So considering it's kind of glued together with a bit of CA glue, a bit of 5-minute epoxy, and then just screwed around some 6mm MDF on both sides and a few pins, I'm pretty happy with that. So it's a good start. I'm back at it, and I was lying in bed last night awake thinking about this because my original plan for retaining the spindle in there was to have some sort of a catch like this that folded down like that and prevented it from coming out backwards when you were using it. And that would be bolted through here with a thumb screw to keep everything as tool free as possible, and just go down like that, and then you loosen the thumb screw and everything. Problem with that is the thumb screw will stick out here, stick out about that much, and when you're winding it, that's going to collide, it's going to foul it, whatever you want to call it, get in the way. So I can't do that. I thought about whether you could mount the thing further down and have it like this, but I think however you did that, it's going to collide with the thing, collide with the turny wheel thing, whatever you call it. So the only way I think I can do it is to have a sliding thing that comes down and slides to block that opening like that. But again, I can't mount the thumb screw here because that will potentially get in the way of wires winding up and stuff. So I think it will have to kind of have a right angled element to it and sort of have a slider there and slide up and down like that, and you bolt it in that way. So I'll see what I can do. Here's what I've come up with then. So I've got this piece which will slide up and down there in order to close up the gap, and that piece goes there, and then there'll be a bolt, a thumb screw through there into a threaded insert so you can tighten it up, and then these two will kind of slide as one up and down like that. It's a bit chunkier than I wanted. I wanted something that was much more kind of low key and just in like that, but unfortunately I've marked the kind of swing of the thing there. That's that pencil mark. So this should, when it's in, that should just be clear a bit. So it should be alright. To be honest, this is the left side anyway, and I tend to have the handle on the right side. So I'm going to route the edges of that just to make it look a bit nicer. The slot's pretty rustic. I should have done it with a router and I didn't. I did it by drilling a load of holes and jigsawing it. So that was silly, but anyway, let's see if I can make it look a bit nicer with a router. Okay, I've made my doofers. These are the bits that will slide up and down on there, like that. I've marked up where to put a bolt through. I'm going to put a drill through it and put a threaded insert on the other side, on the back side, so that I can screw a bolt through and it'll be pulling the threaded insert rather than trying to pull it out of the wood. It's not the neatest job. I mean, you can see they look a bit better with the routed edges on, but obviously it's split. I've tried to force a bit of glue in there. I screwed it in and it's split, annoyingly. So yeah, this is probably the worst looking bit of the whole thing, to be honest. It's not ideal, but at least it will be functional. Won't have to use any tools or a drive or anything to get the spindles in and out. So that's lucky. That one didn't split as much, a little bit, but they'll do the job. They're not super strong, but it'll work. How many different camo hoodies can I wear in one video, eh? Keep watching, find out. Anyway, I've done this. So there is a threaded insert on the back, and then obviously this thumb screw goes into it. Undo it a bit, slot things down, nice and secure. All stays where it's meant to stay, so that's working pretty well. Next job is to get these dowels, which are just from the old one. I'm going to put threaded inserts into the ends and then hold the whole thing together with that. So I'll do that now. I'm going to start with a gimlet, make a little dent. Then I'm going to use one of these Archimedean drills, and then I'm going to work up slowly through the drill bits, 2, 4, 6, 8. One thing that's annoying, it's not really a mistake, but so I thought I'd use these R-clips to retain the spindle since they don't need a tool. Well, I bent it a bit so it doesn't need a tool. So that's an extra bit, doesn't need a tool. Obviously when it's like that, it won't go through, but in that orientation, now I've got a slot, it can get pulled through the slot, which I hadn't really thought about. So what I've done is I've made that just to go over it. And there we go. Now it can't get pulled through regardless of which way it is. So makes that a bit thicker. So I had to kind of account for that. But on the other side, it's not an issue because on the other side, I've got this thing. So that kind of does the same job anyway. Hey ho, another thing I didn't think about when I started the Wind-O-Matic 6000, but almost ready to put it together. Right, time for the big reveal. So here's what we started with. The Wind-O-Matic 5000 to this. There it is. The Wind-O-Matic 6000. I haven't branded it yet. I need to write Wind-O-Matic 6000 on it so that it doesn't get, you know, no one's mistaken. But there you go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Still got the janky handle. I'm going to have a quick go and see if I can come up with something for that because I've had an idea it might work. I'll see. Only other thing I'm going to do is maybe all the non-melamine parts I'm going to give like probably a coat of something, maybe wax or something on there just to give it a bit of protection, but I am pretty happy with that overall. Let's get the spindle out, loosen that, bring it up, loosen that one, bring it up, and it's out. And then you can leave these bits on there to kind of hold the wires in while you get some, I use bits of cardboard to put on the end and stuff. Slot the new spindle in, back down, back down. Yep, pretty happy with that. Seemed like that was going to be the end, didn't it? But check it out, because I solved the problem of winding that with a drill or a driver. Check it out. Look at this. Let me just make sure you're seeing that. Oh yeah, it's not going to win any prizes for beauty or woodworking, but look at that. It's a simple square hole, a random old hex bit of epoxy to hold it in. That will fit into any drill driver. The slot there is to fit over the R-clip or whatever I happen to be using to retain the pin. It'll fit the square end of all the spindles. The end of all the spindles is square. So there you go. As I said, pretty happy with that. So yeah, I'm going to give it a coat or something. There's one thing I'm not totally happy with, and that is with 3 legs. Just move that. With 3 legs, it does mean that the spindle sits lower to the ground than it did before, because when I only had 2 legs at the 45-degree angle, the spindle was kind of more up here. But, you know, got to leave something for the Wind-O-Matic 7000, haven't we? So I guess I'll see you in a year or two. And that really is the end. Goodbye.